Okay. Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Hitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitangscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome again, everyone, to Saturday Sanga. Jai Ho. Nice to see you all again. Seeing some of you and some of you seeing your names. One of the conveniences of Zoom is that we can be present and not present simultaneously. So we're continuing our routine. We're going to read, sing Bhaktivinoda Thakura's song from Kalyana Kalpataru. We're going to read a verse from Srila Raghunath Das Goswami's Manashiksha. We'll see if there's any show and tell. I have one small show and tell to make. Continue our Shastra discussion. And within that Shastra discussion, we have at least one question already from Soumya Karani, which is a whole bunch of questions about hermeneutics. So there we go. and we'll see what happens. Let us not be too much attached to plans, because other things can happen. Okay, good. Should we sing first, or should we do a mana shiksha first? Decisions. I don't know. Let's sing. This is song number 3, Upadesa within Kalyana Kalpataru. Mana re, my dear mind, Tumi, Boro, sandigdha-antar. First verse translation is, my dear mind, you are most suspicious and doubtful at heart, having come into this material world and becoming conditioned within the prison cell of this dull material body. You have become stupefied by being attached continuously to temporary external matter. The word stupefied doesn't mean stupid. English, stupefied means becoming very dull, very something like stunned, but it's not like stunned in ecstasy. But yeah, something like being dull. I think that's the word he uses here. Yeah, jaradhare. Then the next verse, O mind, you are forgetting your own eternal home, and you are rendering faithful service to dull material lust. Rendering faithful service as a kind of ironic humor there. Thus, you cannot perceive anything beyond the gross inanimate objects which are directly contacted by your senses. Your true nature as pure spirit soul has become covered over and remains hidden inside your body. Bhuliya, avakiya, dhama. So bhuliya means forgetting, having forgotten your own home, your eternal home. Avakiya dham, sebi, jaragata, kam. Rendering faithful service to dull material lust. Jaragata. The way it's transliterated, jara, gata, I believe that R would normally be transcribed as retroflex da, that is to say a D with a dot under it. So it would be jara. It's kind of halfway between a D and an R. To pronounce jara, gota. Literally gone dull, gone dead, or gone inanimate. Jara, bina, na, dekho, apar. Thus you cannot perceive, dekho, you cannot perceive anything beyond apar, the gross inanimate objects, jara. Tomar, tumitva. Let's see. That's an interesting expression. Your true nature. I guess it's literally your you-ness, your being yourself, very Sanskritic, your you-ness, as pure spirit soul has become covered over, remains hidden by your body. Acharita, covered, that would be a long A. Acharita. Hojetini. Lupta-praya, mainly covered. Deher bitor. Bitara means within, inside. So inside of the body, deher bitor. Lupta-praya, mainly hidden. Third verse, dear mind, according to your materialistic knowledge and feeble enlightenment. Feeble means very weak. You always meditate on so-called scientific subject matters, but all of that is simply limited to all the moving and non-moving things which are confined within the jurisdiction of this temporarily created universe. That's quite some translation. Tumi to jariya gyan. So again, jara and then jariya, related to or of the nature of jara gyan. Your knowledge of the dull world, sada kori techo dhyan, on which you are always meditating, tahe srishti koroha charachar. Charachar means moving and non-moving. And srishti means creation. Yeah, you're just meditating on the creation, the material creation of moving and non-moving beings. E dukkha kohibo kore. To whom shall I, oh, is that it? Yeah, to whom shall I tell the story of my anguish? Nitya-pati-parihari, having forgotten the Lord. I have abandoned my eternal Father. Okay, that's nitya-pati-parihari. And the little apostrophe after parihari indicates that it would be parihariya, which is the gerund. So parihariya would mean thoroughly rejected, thoroughly turned away from. Nitya-pati, my eternal Lord, or your eternal Lord, he's speaking to the mind. E dukkha kahibo kore. This suffering, this misery, kahibo, who will I speak it to? Tuccha-tattve korile nirbhar. Tuccha-tattva. I an insignificant reality. Nearbar. I don't know what that's referring to. Then the fourth verse, my dear mind, you're not seeing the truth of the nature of the soul, and thus you have given up the natural pure goodness of your heart. Nahi dekho atma-tattva, atma-tattva, the nature of the self, chari dile suddha-sattva. So you've given up chari, natural pure goodness of your heart, suddha-sattva, atma, hote, which means hoite, nile abasar. You have put a stop to all spiritual activity by taking yourself far away from the soul. Atma-tattva ki na-ache. Oh, this is interesting. Sandeha-tomar kache. You always maintain the doubt. Does the soul exist or not? Atma-ache, the self exists. Ki na-ache, atma ki na-ache, or does not exist. Sandeha, this doubt, tomar kache, is literally in your proximity. Krame krame pailo adar. You gradually, krame krame, become more and more fond of such doubting. Pailo, you've gained, I don't know, adar, attachment or something to that kind of sandeha, doubting. Yeah, you've become a professional skeptic. E rupe krame krame pariya jarir brahme apana apani hole par. My dear mind, in this way, you are falling into the illusory mistakes of the insensitive world of matter. Krame krame, you are gradually, pariya, I think means falling, jaradhare, of the dull material world, brahme. Brahm means mistake, it means wandering, like that. So, apan. Thus, your own real self has become transformed into an entirely different false personality. So, para means other. Apan apani, you yourself, or your own self. I would say your own self. Apan means like your own. Apni. Hoilo par, it's become something else. You're not being yourself. Now, just take heed of my advice. Ebe kota rakomor. Dear friend, and don't cheat your own soul in this way any longer. Nahi how atma-chor. Don't be a thief. Don't become a thief of the self, literally. Don't cheat yourself. But from now on, please keep yourself in the company of the devotees of the Lord. Sadhu, shad, I should say in Bangla Bhasha, sadhu, shango, koro, I think that's koroha, par, ataha, therefore, perhaps koroha, do it, sadhu sanga, be in their association of sadhus. And finally, by the power of the Vaishnav's compassion, Vaishnava kripa bale, bale is power, strength, then all of your doubts will be long gone. Sandeha jayibe chale. Jayibe chale. They will go. The sandeha doubts will go far away. Tumi puna hoibe tomar. And your soul will become yours once again. Again, he's speaking to the mind. Your mind, oh mind, your soul, and Hoibe Tomar will be yours. Your soul will belong to you again. You will attain the transcendental abode of Vrindavan. Pabe means Paibe. You will attain Vrindavan Dham. Sebi, you will serve. Who will you serve? Shri Radha Shyam. Pulakashrumoy, Kalebar, and your kalebara, your body, will become Pulak Ashru Moy. It's going to become ecstatic. Your hair standing on end, Pulaka, and tears will flow. Moy, Maya, not Maya, but Maya, constituted of these ecstatic symptoms. Bhaktivinoda Erdhan, Radha Krishna, Shi Charan, Taherati, Rahun, Nirantar. There you will wait upon Radha Shyam in your eternal spiritual body. We had that. Sebi Beshi Radha Shyam, Pulakashramoy, Kalebar, which abounds in ecstatic shivering and torrents of joyful tears. Thus, the real wealth, dhana, of Bhaktivinoda is to keep continuous, intense absorption in the beautiful lotus feet of Sri Radha Krishna. Taherati Rahun, keeping nirantar, constantly. Keeping what constantly? Rati, attachment to what? Radha Krishna Shri Charana, the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. So that's nice. It starts out a kind of preaching to the mind that you're completely absorbed in material preoccupation, and it ends in ecstasy, full absorption in Radha and Krishna. So that's quite a big jump in one song. All right, let's see. What we have, Manare. Manare, Tumi Boro sandigdha-antar. Manare, Tumi Boro sandigdha-antar. Asiyacho, samsare, baddha hoje, jaradhare. Asiyacho, samsare, baddha hoje, jaradhare. Jarasakta hoile nirantar. Jarasakta hoile nirantar. Bhuliya avakiya dham. Sebi jaragata kam. Bhuliya avakiya dham. Sebi jaragata kam. jara bina na dekho apar. Jara bina na dekho apar. Tomar tumitva chini acharita hoje tini. Tomar tumitva jini acharita hoje tini. Lupta-praya dehe bito. Lupta-praya dehe bito. Tumi to sada kori techo dana. Tumi to jadiya gyan sada kori techo dana. Tahe sishti koro jara tahe sishti koro jara e dukkha kahibo kare nitya-pati-parihari e dukkha kahibo kare nitya-pati-parihari tuccha-tattve korile nirbana. Tuccha-tattve korile nirbana. Atma-tattva charidile suddha-sattva nahi dekho atma-tattva charidile suddha-sattva atma hote nile abasa atma hote nile abasa atma ache kina ache sandigdha-antar kache atma ache kini nat ache sandigdha-antar kache krame krame pailo adar krame krame pailo adar e rupe krame krame pariya jade brahme e rupe krame krame hariya jare brahme apani hole apani hole ebe kota rako mor nahi hao atma-cho ebe kata rako mor nahi hao atma-cho sadhu sanga kodo atta sadhu sanga kodo atta Vaishnave kripa bole Shandeha jaibe chale Vaishnave kripa bole Shandeha jaibe chale Tumi puna hoibe to ma Tumi puna hoibe to ma Pabe Vrindavana Dam Sebi Beshi Radha Sam Pabe Vrindavana Dam Sebi Beshi Radha Sam Pulakashu Moy Kale Pulakashu Moy Kale Bhaktivinoda Dham Radha Krishna Shri Charana Bhaktivinoda Dham Radha Krishna Shri Charana Taherati Rahun nirantar Taherati Rahun nirantar Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare everyone Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Haribo, 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 Gaur Haribo, Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Gaur Haribo. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura ki jai. Yes. So, yeah, I think I already kind of discussed the song before we sang, so I won't continue with that. I want to continue with addressing the mind, though, this time with the help of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. In verse number 3 of his 12 verses, Mana Shiksha, his instruction to the mind. Yadiccherabhasam Rajabhovisaragam Pratijanur Yuvadvandvam Tat Sarupam Shri Rupam Saganamihatasya Grajamapi Sputang Premna Nityam Smaranamatara Tvang Srinumana. Listen, O mind. If you desire in every birth to reside in the land of Vraja with loving attachment and to serve the youthful couple of Sri Sri Radha Krishna in close proximity. Then clearly remember and offer obeisance to Sri Swarupa, to Sri Rupa, and his associates in Vrindavan, and to Sri Rupa's elder brother, Sri Sanatan. So the form of this verse is, if X, then do Y. If you want X, then do Y. So what is it you want? If you want, yadi, he's not saying you have to want, but if you want to reside in Braja, engaged in loving devotion to Yuvadvanva, the pair, the divine Yeah, the youthful couple, yuva. Yes, yuva means youthful. The youthful two, the youthful, the youthful two, the pair, the youthful pair. If you want to be with them, paricharitum, in order to serve them fully or in a comprehensive way, because pari has that sense of around, paricharitum, to engage in service thoroughly. Arat, while staying nearby. Abhilashe, if this is yadi abhilashe, if this is your desire, tada, then what to do? Then comes the answer. If you want this, then do that. What should you do? Sarupam shirupam saganam. So Sarupa Damodar and Rupa Goswami Saganam with his associates. Iha, here, where we are in the present. Tasya agrajam, and his Tasya agraja, his elder brother, who is Sanatana Goswami, api also, sputam, prem na nityam smara. The key word is smara, and the word smara is in the imperative form. It's an instruction. Remember. So it's a command. Smara nama tada, then, tvam shrinumanam, listen, O mind. So it's inviting us to enter into Vrindavan via the association of the Vrindavan Goswamis. And it's interesting, I've just been reading or rereading the very beginning of Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, looking at Jiva Goswami's commentary. And it's interesting, Rupa Goswami refers, according to Jiva Goswami, Rupa Goswami refers to Sanatana Goswami in one of his first prayers. I think it's the third verse. And he is, according to Jiva Goswami, referring to him as Nija Guru, as his own guru. He sees Sanatana Goswami as his guru. And so we can remember Rupa and Sanatana and the other Goswamis of Vrindavan, and we're invited to also remember Swarupa Damodar, who was living in in Puri with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was one of the very, very, very close associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Raghunath Das is saying, you want to enter into that service of Braja Leela, here is the way you go. And it involves memory. And it's interesting to think about memory, how memory works. A few days ago, I was remembering a friend from high school. And what particularly struck me was that I could immediately remember the sound of his voice. And I think you can all have this experience. You can think of someone that you haven't seen in many, many years. And you'll remember their voice. You'll remember the sound of their voice. It's very interesting, I think, how that memory works. Anyway, Hare Krishna. So, yes, again, welcome to all of you. And in particular, this time, we have some new faces. We have from Brazil, I believe, Pradyumna and Vishaka. Pradyumna Prabhu and Vishaka Devi. Welcome to you. And I see Narayani is with us, also from Brazil. Hare Krishna Narayani. Welcome. And I see Sinisha, and I'm not sure I know Sinisha. Do I know Sinisha? Mystery, he doesn't want to tell us who he is. That's all right.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I stay in Germany, but I come from Croatia.
Okay. Where in Germany?
In the town called Rheine, that is in Westfalen.
Okay, nice. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
And Pradyumna and Vishaka, where are you in Brazil?
Jai Maharaj, Hare Krishna. We are from São Paulo.
São Paulo.
Yes.
Okay. The big wild city of São Paulo. Okay. So I think now we can just see if anyone has something to share. Any little thing you want to share. News or thoughts of something or the other that you feel would be good to share for yourself or for anyone else. Everyone's being a little shy, I think. How can we overcome this shyness? Maybe we have to have a seminar, overcoming shyness. Or maybe you're all just so completely absorbed in, oh, Deva Shiranika, you have your hand up.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisance.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled Vaishnavas. I'm sorry to interject, but I did feel inspired to share something. Few days ago, I was hearing this, because this came up with the ending of the song, which talks about Rati, a soft heart, Rati, which is attachment to Shri Radha and Krishna. And I could recollect how once I also read in the Madhya Leela of the Chaitanya Charitamrita how a soft heart is very conducive to develop Rati. And then chanting of the holy name can help us clearing this mirror of our heart, etc. And a few days ago, I was listening to this Harinam Chintamani audiobook from the translation from His Holiness Bhanu Swami. And in that, because Srila Haridas Thakur describes the various offenses, and it's a conversation between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Haridas Thakur. And then while hearing it, I just had this thought and I wanted to share it, that perhaps I hope it is a correct way of thinking about it. And the fact that very often we do strive, as when we are trying to be Krishna conscious, to chant offenselessly. And then I thought that the way Srila Haridas Thakur describes offenseless chanting, this offenseless chanting is not just about the 2 hours when we are chanting, but it's just our whole way of being, and it spreads throughout our whole day to avoid offenses. And because if we look deeper into the offenses and what they mean, the offenses to the holy name, that really means that, yeah, it's not just when we are chanting we have to be attentive and we have to not commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name, etc. Or but it's just about our whole being, our, like, each day, every moment, the way we are, the way we think, the way we behave determines whether or not we are offenselessly or offensively chanting. So I don't know if it's the correct way of thinking about this, but it's just hearing this, it just kind of dawned on me, and I felt like, wow, this is so deep, these topics. This is just something I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, all this time I was thinking I could be completely offensive 22 hours of the day, and then just 2 hours of the day I can stop being offensive. But you're saying no. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that's not right. Yes, no, it's good that we are alerted to this point, because we may think, it may be because we have a tendency to, I think it's a result of modern industrial life, where we sort of partition our lives in different ways. We have our work and our off work and so on. And so there's a temptation to think, okay, so I can just be sort of off my guard when I'm not chanting, but when I'm chanting, then I will be on my guard. But that's actually not the case. It's devotional service 24/7, isn't it? That's kind of scary, isn't it? 24/7. Oh my God. Don't I get any time off? Okay, thank you. I think Avaduta-rai maybe was next.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji was mentioning about chanting, and it came into my mind. Last week I just read an interesting quote by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. I would like to tell what he said, and I have a question also. He explained that there are two most heavy offenses among the 10 offenses. That's the Vaishnava aparad and committing offense on the strength of the holy name.
Mm-hmm.
And one can become purified by from these two offenses by constantly chanting the holy name, and the person will also have to suffer the consequences of the offenses. And the rest of the 8 offenses, the person will become purified by constantly chanting, but the person will not have to suffer the consequences. So this was interesting for me about suffering. And my question would be, if you could kindly explain, please, the Guru aparad is one of those 8 other offenses. And it seems also to me a heavy offense, but still one doesn't have to suffer like for the first 2, the Vaishnava aparad and the chanting on the committing offense on the strength of the holy name. So I don't know if you could explain a little bit about this. Thank you.
I don't know if Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives himself explanation of that somewhere. It's very possible in Jaiva Dharma that he explains. But he may be giving a distinction of degree, not necessarily suffering, not suffering, but more a matter of degree. But the question may then still be there. Wouldn't that be very serious to neglect the order of the guru? I mean, all of the offenses, we can say, I would say all of the offenses are matters of degree. Each one of them you could take in a milder way or a more serious way, from quite unintentional to quite intentional. I think that would be the essential factor of seriousness. And so certainly it would be a very serious offense to intentionally not just ignore, but to go against the order of guru. Guru avakiya is the Sanskrit. And certainly suffering would be there if in no other way that one would be guaranteeing one's continual conditioned life. And that means suffering. So one way or another, there's going to be suffering if there's, unless and until we come to freedom from material existence, isn't it? But Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes such distinctions sometimes in order to emphasize something. In this case, he wants to emphasize the first and the seventh aparads as especially problematic. And we could say that the third offense, guru avakiya, would be then an aspect of or a type of the first offense. Disrespecting the Vaishnavas, because presumably the guru is a Vaishnava. And then the seventh offense is committing sinful activity. Well, it's a sinful activity. The guru is giving order to not do sinful activity. So if we're neglecting that order, we're doing sinful activity, which means we're suffering for that. That's how I would explain it, if I had to. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Then we have Dhira Lalita has her hand up.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I was just thinking, I just thought of something that I've read a long time ago about one Christian monk. And it's also related to remembering in order to be in Braja and serve Shri Radha Shyam Sundar in this Mana Shiksha, third verse that you've talked on today, that we should remember Srila Rupa and Srila Sanatana Swami and the Spark Damodar, it was associated with Lord Chaitanya. And funny enough, and also the how to this Father Lawrence. I can't even remember now. It was a long time ago. I got this book from some Abbey church, second-hand, small one, and I just sat there and read it. And he said that he was a monk all of his life, and his services was there to cook for others. And he said that sometime when he was 80 years old, he wrote some of his thoughts. And he said, it was just say the ending. He said that how to be aware of the Lord, of the presence of the Lord in one's life in every second. And he says his personal experience is that no matter how much intensely he felt the presence of the Lord, that much intensely he was trying to serve him in many different ways, by serving other people, by being there for other people, telling other people about God. He would get very frustrated by saying, you know, no, I can't take this anymore because you're always giving more. Can't you get it? I'm your servant, you're not my servant. So it's sort of a proof that if one practice, I mean, for me personally, if one practices and spiritual practice as we do, chanting the holy name without offenses, then I believe that I can feel the Lord in every second of my life. And I wish I could feel this frustrated that I'm giving everything that I could, but the Lord always gives more. so he was going on, no, don't do anything for me. I'm doing this for you. Don't do anything for me. But he would always feel this mega reciprocation. That's one thing that I wanted to share today. And also, I got a new tulsi plant today from one devotee, and I'm very, very happy about it. I had one big tulsi plant for 8 years, and then we went traveling around India for half a year, and then she left her body. So this is a new new tulsi, and I'm very happy about it.
Very good, very good. Yes. Yes, that would be a good kind of frustration, to feel that the Lord is giving too much blessing, and we just want to serve the Lord. And speaking of Tulsi plants here, and since recently we have a little greenhouse for them. And since they've been in the greenhouse, they've been going completely, we say in English, bonkers. They've been growing manjaris that are like this long, but full. They're just completely full of manjaris now.
Wow, that's so nice. And I'm also planning to have a greenhouse, Guru Maharaj.
Okay.
Hopefully in 2 years' time I'll be able to realize that by your blessings and blessings of Vaishnavas.
Okay, good. A little show and tell from me. When I got back from New Shantipur, there were 2 packages waiting for me, both of them books. The first one is a novel written by His Holiness Sri Dayananda Goswami. He's been, I don't know how long he's been writing this novel. I just remember years ago he said he's writing a novel, and now and then one would ask, so how's it going with your novel? And he would say, yeah, it's coming. And after some time, we kind of gave up asking. And now here it is. And it's good. It's, we say in English, it's a page turner. It's a story about a young boy, a teenager, who grows up in a very wealthy family in West Virginia in the US. And then all kinds of misfortunes happen in his family, beginning with the murder of his father. And then everything spirals down from there. At one point, he receives a book as a gift from his mother, which is called The First Avatar. And it's about Krishna. And he finds himself so fascinated by the book that he, at one point, finds himself inside the world of what is being described in that book. And then he comes back, and yeah, it's kind of one adventure after another. But it's quite, I think it's a kind of, in German they say Bildungsroman. It's a novel about education, about how someone grows up. And of course, it's introducing Krishna consciousness in a very interesting way. And the other book I got, I was quite surprised and happy to receive, arranged by Ananda Leela and Gaurachandra, is I'll Build You a Temple, the Juhu story by His Holiness Giriraj Swami. And this has been, well, he's been working on this for some years. I don't know exactly how long, but I know he's been working carefully on it. He's also had help with research. I remember Narottam Das Thakur Prabhu, he said, oh, Maharaj has me doing research for him. I have to go to the Mumbai library to learn some history, how things, what was happening when Prabhupada was present in Mumbai, things like that. So, yeah. Yeah, I have to also, I don't know, confess that reading Hridayananda Maharaj's novel, I'm approaching halfway through it now. I started thinking, gosh, maybe I should write a novel. And then I started having a couple of ideas, but I won't tell you what they are. Maybe later, or we'll see. I have to see if the idea sticks any longer than 1 week. Next week, I might say, what, write a novel? Forget it. I don't know. We'll see. Well, speaking of novel writing, here we have the novelist Hiranya Pandit and Mamata Mai. Oh, he's talking about 24/7 service. Doesn't mean sleepless life, right? Sleeping is also service. I hope so. To Krishna, because our bodies belong to him, and by sleeping we take care of and heal the body and let the brain and mind rest as well. Yes, for sure. Without sufficient sleep and rest, there's a risk of physical or mental burnout. This applies definitely. Yeah, rest is very essential. It's yeah, I was just reading another book about the chakras, where she expresses that rest or sleep is a way in which the body kind of retunes itself. It gets the vibrations, the various frequencies that are vibrating in the body to kind of retune themselves to function properly. Sounds good anyway. Someone asked Srila Prabhupada about the chakras once, and he answered, chakras? No chakras. We are not this body. But I find it helpful for thinking how to deal with the body, to think about the chakras, which Mamata Mayi, also known as Padma Manjari, knows a lot about, I believe. Okay, I'm rambling now. Let's see now. Well, there are more things in the chat, and I would want to respond to those, but what I'm thinking is let's now go straight into our Chaitanya Charitamrita discussion and take it for some time, and then let's see, maybe very slowly, and in our Chaitanya Charitamrita. And I would say for good reason, we have considerable subject to discuss. And within this, we do want to get to some Karani's questions about hermeneutics. But first, let's go to verse number, I believe it's 128 of chapter 7, Adi Lila. And for that, let's see if we can share the screen. Share screen. Okay. Oops. Are you able to see the Chaitanya Charitamrita there? Because I don't see it on mine. No, you don't see. Okay, the problem is because I'm using two screens. I think what I have to do is turn one of them off. And yes, that works. Maybe you can see now. Right, and I have to move this out of the way. So the subject today, the broader subject, as most of you know, is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaking with Prakashananda Saraswati and friends, his sannyas followers, discussing Vedanta. And he is speaking quite straightforwardly on being critical of Shankaracharya, often referred to as Adi Shankara. Critical, but at the same time, he says Shankaracharya was simply following orders. He was fulfilling a purpose, a mission of the Lord, and therefore he's not at fault. He's made that clear. He's given some points about interpretation, hermeneutics, in previous verses, particularly about the notion of vivarta, which is generally taken to mean illusion. And it seems that Shankara and his followers put a lot of weight on this idea. Oops. I think you have your microphone on, Gaurachandra.
So sorry.
That's okay. And yeah, Vivartavada, which is, according to Shankara, it's seeing that our sense of individuality, our sense of being individual beings, even the notion of there being an Ishvara is ultimately an illusion. So he wants to cancel all of that in order to preserve the unity of Brahman. And the Vaishnavas are protesting fiercely against that because they say, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers say, no, we need to recognize that Brahman has Shaktis, has energies, and it's these energies that change. It's not Brahman itself. Okay, and then he gave an example, and the example was Chintamani, and we talked about that last time, where the illustration is meant to show that from something we're familiar with, which unfortunately we're not familiar with, but what has been come to be translated as touchstone, which is used in testing gold, is said to be something when you touch anything to that stone, that object turns to gold, but itself does not change. So that's one example to show that Brahman does not change when the energies of Brahman are changing. Okay, fair enough, even if we're not familiar with the example, the analogy. So then we're going on now to, or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu shifts the attention now with verse 128 to the subject of Mahavakiya. What constitutes a Mahavakiya? Pranava se Mahavakiya Vedera Nidan Ishvara Sharupa Pranav Sarva Vishvadham. The Vedic sound vibration Omkara, the principal word in the Vedic literatures, is the basis of all Vedic vibrations. Therefore, one should accept Omkara as the sound representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the reservoir of the cosmic manifestation. There's a fairly long purport to this verse. Maybe some of you read it as homework, so to say. And I'll just point to a couple of things from it. Let's see, I made a couple of notes here. It's interesting, Prabhupada quotes this verse from the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita twice. Om ityekaksharang brahma vyaharan mam anusmaran yaprayati tyajandeham sayati paramangatim. The first time he doesn't directly translate it, but then the second time he does. And before he does the second time, he has some fun at the expense of the Mayavadis. He says, sometimes we refer to the Vedanti philosophers as Vedantis, those who have no teeth. V means without, and Danti means possessing teeth. The statements of the Shankara philosophy, which are the teeth of the Mayavadi philosopher, are always broken by the strong arguments of Vaishnava philosophers, such as the great acharyas, especially Ramanujacharya. It's interesting, he gives the credit here to Ramanujacharya. Then he says, Shripad Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya break the teeth of the Mayavadi philosophers, who can therefore be called Vedantis, toothless. And then he quotes and he gives the translation of the verse. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. Sayati paramangatim. Yak prayati tyajan deham. Giving up, it's present participle. Om iti, the iti is like a quotation marks. So quotation marks around the word om. Eka aksharam. An akshara, one meaning of akshara is syllable. So this one syllable. Brahma vyaharan. Mam anusmaran, who is pronouncing, vyaharan, anusmaran, remembering me. So this is interesting. Now, someone might say, well, okay, Bhagavad Gita is such an important Shastra. Why is it that Krishna does not tell us in Bhagavad Gita to chant Hare Krishna? Why doesn't he just come out and say, chant Hare Krishna? One reason is because the Bhagavad Gita is, in an important sense, belonging to the Upanishads. It's sometimes called Gita Upanishad. And looking at the Bhagavad Gita as an Upanishad, it is, so to say, from that angle of vision, it's emphasizing what the Upanishads emphasize, namely realization of Brahman, but at the same time is to realize the personality of Brahman, the personality of the Absolute, that the Absolute is a person. And that is hinted in the Bhagavad Gita, or it's hinted in the Bhagavad Gita in this verse, through this equation, or an equation is being hinted in this verse, in the first line, Eka Aksharang Brahma, Vyaharan Mam Anusmaran. One is to chant the syllable Om, remembering me. Anu Smaran means ongoing, remembering in an ongoing way, constantly or perpetually ongoing like that. And so Krishna's kind of holding himself on the side of the tone of the Upanishads, and at the same time, he's introducing himself. He's step by step, and this is chapter 8. So chapter 9, it's going to become even more, Krishna will become more central. Chapter 10, he becomes even more central. Chapter 11, he makes this incredible demonstration of his Virat Rupa, and it kind of, that demonstration throws Arjuna off of his feet, so to say. So, and Prabhupada in this purport is speaking about the importance. He goes on with more references in the Gita. Pita hamasya jagato mata data pitamaha vedyam pavitram omkara rik sama yajur eva cha. I'm the father of this universe, the mother, support, grandsire, object of knowledge, purifier, and the syllable Om. So there he's being quite explicit. of equating, identifying himself with this syllable Om. And this is, in some sense, we can say this is a kind of tactic that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is taking. Why does he need a tactic? Well, Prakashananda and his followers are very much attached to the Upanishads because they are the authority for Vedanta. If you want to talk Vedanta, you have to quote Upanishads. You also quote Bhagavad Gita, you also quote Vedanta Sutras. These three sources are authorized, they're bona fide. And in the Upanishads, there are references to the syllable Om as being very important. And here I looked up in my book of Upanishads, this is translation, the early Upanishads, which includes on the left side of each page on the Devanagari, the Sanskrit, and then translation on the right. This has all been done by Professor Patrick Ovelle at University of Austin in Texas in the US. A very nice man, a very dedicated person. I've met him at a conference. A jolly fellow, I must say. Also, he likes to joke, but he is the present day authority for, I won't say the, but he's a very prominent authority on the Upanishads and also on Dharma Shastra. He's translated Dharma Shastras and other things. So in his translation, we have the Mandukya Upanishad, which is even shorter than the Isha Upanishad. Most of the Upanishads are longer, some of them much, much, much longer. And the Mandukya Upanishad seems to be the shortest. And one thing it talks about is the syllable Om. And just to give you a little flavor of this, it says in the very first phrase, Om itye tat aksharam idam sarvam. This whole world is that syllable, Om. And then it says, here is a further explanation of it. The past, the present, and the future, all that is simply Om. And whatever else that is beyond the three times, that also is simply Om. Sarvam Omkara Eva. Yacha Anyat Trikala Tita Tat Api Omkara Eva. That is also Omkara. For this Brahman is the whole. Brahman is this self, Atman. That Brahman is this self, Atman, consisting of 4 quarters. And then it goes on to elaborate on each of the 4, what it calls quarters, Vaishvanara, Taijasa, Prajna, and a 4th quarter. It doesn't give a name for it here, just 4th quarter, and how these are all also Om. And then he says, Om is this very self, Atman, whereas with respect to, and then he analyzes the different elements of this Akshara Om. He breaks it down into A, U, and M, and explains how these represent these 3/4 of the universal one, of the self, the 4/4 of the self. What does that mean? And then there's a fourth, which he says is without constituent phonemes. A phoneme is a sound. So amatra, amatrascha tu arta avyavaharya prapanchopashamaha shivaha advaitaha. The fourth, on the other hand, is without constituent phonemes, beyond the reach of ordinary transaction. Ekam omkara atma eva. Accordingly, the very self is Om. Then anyone who knows this enters the self by himself. What is it? Sangvishatyatmanam ya evam veda. A lot of Upanishads end with this. Ya evam veda. That person who knows this, he knows. So the point here is, what's the point? The point is that now Lord Chaitanya is kind of backing up and he's saying, okay, you want your oneness, right? Brahman is one. Yes, we're all for this oneness. That's great. But where do we experience that in the Vedic literature? Most immediately. He's saying we experience it most immediately, might want to say viscerally, with this sound Om, Omkara. The kara means syllable also, or word. And sometimes we see pranava, pranava Omkara. And I wanted to share something about that too, because why does it sometimes say pranava and sometimes Om and sometimes Omkara? So I did a little bit of looking in the Sanskrit dictionary, and pranava, I was sent to pranu, retroflex na, pranu. And pranu, because like you have sadhu, in the plural, sadhu becomes sadhava. Manu becomes manava. So pranu becomes pranava. But pranu, the singular, what does it mean? According to the dictionary of Monier Williams, it means literally to roar, to bellow. Bellow is, sometimes the word is used for an ox or a bull. When a bull makes a loud mooing sound, that's bellowing. To sound, to reverberate. And then pranauti means to make a humming or droning sound, especially to utter the syllable Om. So the activity of pronouncing the syllable Om, that is pranava. It seems that's what it comes from, although pranava becomes a kind of noun from the verb. Anyway, I thought that's interesting. you're probably thinking, not so interesting. Okay, but now what's going to happen? Now I'm going to jump past, briefly, one more thing from the purport. Prabhupada quotes, and he doesn't give the source for this. Akareno chate Krishna sarvalokaika nayaka ukareno chate radha makaro jiva vachaka. Omkara is a combination of the letters A, U, and M. So that's there in the Mandukya Upanishad. Akarena uchate Krishna. The letter A, akara, refers to Krishna, who is Sarvaloka Eka Nayaka, the master of all living entities and planets, material and spiritual. Nayaka means leader. It also means performer, actor. He is the supreme leader, nityo nityanam, chaitanas chaitananam. And then that's Katha-upanishad. The letter U, ukara, indicates Srimati Radharani, the pleasure potency of Krishna, and makara indicates the living entities, jivas. Thus, Om is the complete combination of Krishna, his potency, and his eternal servitors. In other words, Omkara represents Krishna, his name, fame, pastimes, entourage, expansions, devotees, potencies, and everything else pertaining to him. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu states in the present verse of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sarva Vishva Dhama. Omkara is the resting place, Dhama, of everything, Vishva, Sarva Vishva. Just as Krishna is the resting place of everything, Brahmano hi pratishtaham. So what he's doing is he's kind of backing up and saying, okay, let's take this Om as the expression of the unity of Brahman, which means the unity of the absolute truth. And then what does he say? Sarvashroy Ishvarir Pranava Udesh Tattvamasi Bhakya Hoy Vedera Ekadesh Veder Ekadesh. It is the purpose of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to present pranava, that is Omkara, as the reservoir of all Vedic knowledge. The words tat, tvam, asi are only a partial explanation of the Vedic knowledge. Now, at this point, unless we're a little familiar with Advaita Vedanta, we may wonder, well, what is this tat, tvam, asi? Where did this come from all of a sudden? Well, it comes, it's quoted from the Chandogya Upanishad. If I remember, it's from the 6th chapter. And it's a very, very, very famous dialogue between father and son. And it's repeating several times this phrase, tat tvam asi, you, my son, are that. Or, and this is the big issue, you are like that. And I was happy to see, I have to spend some, it would take me some time to find it now, but I was happy to see that, as I remember, Patrick Ovella translates it as you are like that. Whereas the Advaitins, the non-dualists, or including the Mayavadis, they want to make it a simple equation. You are that. And what Mahaprabhu is doing here is he's saying, hold on, let's not jump into that so quickly. why are you insisting on tattvamasi as being so important? You have decided, Shankaracharya decided, and he seems to have just made this his hermeneutic principle, that there are in the Upanishads certain statements which he calls mahavakyas, or we can say primary statements. It's just a handful. It's only like 5 or 6 statements. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma is one of them. Tattvamasi is one of them. And what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying here, let's hold off on this presupposition you're making that we have to interpret everything in terms of what you're calling mahavakyas. Let's go back to what we can all agree is a mahavakya, not just of the Upanishads, but all the way back to the Rig Veda with the syllable Om. Let's make that a mahavakya, shall we? And if we do that, then what happens? We can look at the Upanishads, we can look at the Gita Upanishad, the excuse me, the Bhagavad Gita, and there we can see that the equation to be made is not the Atma and the Brahman in an absolute way, as you want to. The equation to be made is between Om and Brahman and Krishna. And when we do that, then what's going to be the next step? Then we can understand that it is, if we really want to understand the absolute truth, we should chant Hare Krishna. Now, this whole passage in chapter 7 of Adi Lila is really, as I've said a few times before, is very sketchy. It's just giving a few points, and then at one point it says something like, and Lord Chaitanya gave so many more arguments, and the Prakashananda and others, they discussed. But all of that is summarized in one verse, just to say, yes, and they discussed more, and then they were convinced. And it's similar in Madhya Lila discussion with Sarvabhauma, a short summary, and then simply kind of jumps to say, Lord Chaitanya convinced them. If we want to get a more elaborate discussion, explanation from a Vaishnava perspective, well, then we can go to Jiva Goswami's Shat Sandarbha. And that's a big undertaking. I've just gone through a course on the Tattva Sandarbha. We were going 5 days a week, hour and a half for, well, I think it was about 2 months, maybe it was more. And that was the Tattva Sandarbha, which is the shortest, I think, of all the Sandarbhas. But for example, I have the Bhagavat Sandarbha here, which is the second in the series, and there is an extensive discussion. Anucheda number 47 goes for several pages, but within it, it includes discussion of Om. The topic of this Anucheda is that the Lord's name, form, actions, and attributes are transcendental. So the point being argued is that the name Krishna, the form of Krishna, his lila. These are transcendental. These are not under Maya, as the Mayavadis would claim. So, and it's interesting, I just happened to find, that Jiva Goswami quotes from the Mandukya Karika. Now, I think it was last time that I mentioned that it's the Mandukya Karika, which is a commentary on the Mandukya Upanishad by Gaudapada, who is referred to by Shankara as his Paramaguru. In that is the first reference we know of this snake rope analogy. But it's a very strongly Advaitic text. So it's interesting that Jiva Goswami quotes from the Mandukya Karika. We might think, whoa, what is he doing quoting from a Advaitic text? Well, Jiva Goswami is very inclusive. If something supports the Vaishnava Siddhanta, he'll take it. And here he's quoting about pranava. I don't know if I should try to read this. Our translators might protest. It's kind of detailed also. I'll just, the last couple of, or 2 sentences. Om is immeasurable, unlimited, all auspicious, and the end of dualism. Only one who knows Om is to be considered a wise sage, and no one else. Amatro anantamatrascha tvaitasyo pashama shiva. Shiva, auspicious. Omkaro vidito yena sa munir netaraha na itaraha janaha. So he is a muni, a sage who knows Om. So there you go. Chanting Om is bona fide. But how long will you be able to chant Om before you'll go follow? Krishna, 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. We are so fortunate. Lord Chaitanya gives us the Maha Mantra, which is, we could say in one sense, an expansion or the expansion of the Omkara. Now, I do want to get to Soumya Karani's question. And for that, I'm just wondering if Soumya Karani, is it too complicated for you to stop translating and then you can shift and tell us your question, or should I just, I'd have to look for your question. You wrote it.
Soumya Karani Mataji, you can just switch to English channel and we will be able to hear you.
Not so easy, I guess. I was trying to find your email with the question. I don't find it. Okay.
Wait, I will.
We can hear you now, Mataji. We can hear you now.
Oh,
Yeah,
can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Wonderful. Okay, I will just read what I sent to Guru Maharaj. Yesterday evening, I wondered, contemplating on the question of Dhira Lalita, whether Sripad Shankaracharya knew about hermeneutics. He was very, very learned, so probably yes. And if so, did he had other kind of hermeneutics than those that Vaishnavas apply? Yesterday you said it is all Krishna. He lets Shankaracharya see what he wants to see. He lets Madhavacharya see what he wants to see. And he lets Buddha see what he wants to see. Did Krishna give them all their own hermeneutics to understand what they read in scriptures? And if so, what is the use of hermeneutics when all we understand and are capable to interpret is just kind of what we want to see and understand and what Krishna led us to? There are only one and only pure hermeneutics, and others just wait? Is there only one and only pure hermeneutics? And others just to know, and others just do not know about them. Is hermeneutics actually Krishna then? And how is it possible to conceive then? Is it possible?
Okay, that's about 10 questions in one, but it's a good, yeah, it's a big, it's a challenge indeed. Well, let's start with whether Shankaracharya knew about hermeneutics. He certainly would not be knowing that term because that comes from the Greek. Interpretation is certainly something he understood because he was part of a tradition of interpretation, because hermeneutics just means interpretation and the theories of how we interpret. He was within a tradition of Vedic interpretation, we can say, which was also, or which was very much concern of the Mimamsakas, the Purva Mimamsakas, where their concern was how to understand the injunctions of especially the Samhitas and the ritual literature, the Samhitas. They're not interested in the Upanishads. That's Uttara Mimamsa, that's Vedanta. But Shankara certainly knew the Purva Mimamsa, let's say, way of seeing things. And to a large extent, he rejected it. And this forms the basis of his argument for what the very first word of the first sutra of the Vedanta Sutra means. Ataha. Therefore, or now, therefore, ataha and atta, atato, atato Brahma Jignasa. So, but the bigger question is indeed a challenge. Like, is there some sort of absolute system? Are there some absolute principles of interpretation, which if everyone knew them, we would all come to the same conclusions? And I'm inclined to say possibly in previous ages, but possibly not in the age of Kali, because we are living in the age of quarrel, where we seem to find disagreement easier, much easier than we find agreement. Even from the same texts, even using the same principles. And indeed, I think I've mentioned that we have developed a course in Vaishnava hermeneutics. We means the Shastra Advisory Council. And it's been, so to say, tested with 2 groups of senior devotees, leaders, and it was highly appreciated. But also, it's now being attacked fiercely by certain devotees who feel that the whole course, the way we've set it up and the basic principles that we've chosen, they feel that it's been, in a sense, rigged to lead to certain kinds of conclusions which they do not like. And specifically, and they're quite specific about it, they say from your hermeneutic system, it's too easy to come to the conclusion that it is possible for women to become gurus in ISKCON. So most of you will know this is controversial. It's probably going to go on being controversial for a long time to come, so don't hold your breath. But it's I just find it very interesting that they've sort of drawn out of our course, although we don't, in the course, we don't say anything on this subject specifically, but they say, they smell, we say in English, they smell a rat or a dead rat. Anyway, that's going to be an ongoing discussion. It's on the level of the GBC, and we're going to be having a meeting about it with the SAC very soon. So my point is, we're in the age of Kali, so it's very difficult. And at the same time, what we're trying to do, just broadly speaking, with this course is to help devotees kind of move the quality of discussion up from, tamagun, rajagun to at least sattvaguna. Let us be civil in our discussions. We might not agree on conclusions, but let's be civil. And let's indeed have a shastra. Nuanced means very careful and discriminating understanding of shastra. And so let us, if we want to make an argument, let's make it well. Let's make our arguments with a good foundation. That's what we're trying to say. Last time, very quickly, briefly, I rushed through, and we're at the end of our time now again. Last time we went through a sampling given by Baladev Vidyabhushana to the Purva Mimamsa system of analyzing scripture according to 6 features, 6 lakshanas, or lingams. And we can go back to that. I didn't give it enough time, but he took 2 verses from the, I think, Shvetashvatara Upanishad about the two birds in the tree. And he showed how they make very clear that there is a distinction between this, the Atma and Brahman or Paramatma, through using the system of Purva Mimamsa. Hare Krishna. Well, that's okay. That's maybe, I hope that helps at least to begin to answer your question. So much more might be said, but that's, we can, it will be an ongoing discussion for us as well, I hope. I hope that we can, tease out some more things as we go along in reading Chaitanya Charitamrita. We're using this especially. Yeah, there are so many comments here. Vrindapati. Oh, who can chant Om? Whether it's only for men. I have a theory that originally it was universally available, but that later became restricted. Yes, that seems to be the case. And what was it? I was just reading. It said something about that indicated it's actually open. It's for persons to learn. If one learns to chant Om, then you can enter into Vedic knowledge, something like that.
Bije prije onda možda samo malo voća ili nešto kad se vratimo, ne kruh i sendviče.
Whoops. Okay, I think that's a sign for us to end for the day. So thank you all very much, and do have a wonderful week. Keep safe, keep well, keep happy. Chant Hare Krishna. Chant Om if you like. It's not against the rules to chant Om. Om Tat Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pasyanti Suraya Diviva Chakshara Tatam Tat Vipra So Vipanyavo Jagrivag Sa Samindate Vishnor Yat Paramam Padam. Okay, thank you all. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari.
Haribo, Gurudev.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo, Hare Krishna.
Haribo, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Jai Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Haribo, Hare Vaishnava.
Haribo, Hare Krishna. Guru Maharaj ki jai.
Haribo,
Yeah.
Haribo. Hare Kelly.
Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai.
Haribo.